How do you ever say no to somebody like Steve Hilton? So without further ado, let's bring forth our next governor of the state of California, Steve Hilton.
Here we are. How are you doing? Where are we? What is this? It's pretty. What an amazing place, no? I love this place. This is what California's all about. Just the energy, the excitement. This room full of people who know that this year, change is coming. Change is coming. Gloria, do you agree?
It's here. We're ready.
We are ready. Michael, do you agree?
1,000%.
All right, 1,000%. We all agree. Change is coming. This is the year we do it. This is the year we restore our beautiful state of California to its glory. So exactly as Gloria was saying, instead of people leaving California, people are going to be coming back to California. Businesses coming back to California. Young people staying here in California so they can have the California dream right here in our state instead of having to move to somewhere else. That's all going to be happening, and very, very soon. So, yeah, I'm not interested in you guys. I'm looking at these cars. It's an amazing place. I want to say thank you to our hosts for having us in this incredible place. Don't you think? And you just, we just said hi, and you said something very important. You said, you can do it. That's what you said to me. I think he's right. I think we can do it, don't you? I think we can do it. I'm not going to talk for too long. We'll get to the questions, but I want to say this, something special, just as Gloria was mentioning, and I didn't hear you, Michael. Did you talk about the America 250? No. Okay. No, I'll do it. We've been on the road a lot with each other, so we kind of know how it's going to go. But it's something I just want to say about this beautiful country and the fact that we are just about to celebrate an amazing moment, 250 years, 250th birthday of America. And also something else that we're celebrating. How about this? You didn't think this was ever going to happen in America. We're celebrating soccer. And just to show you how much football, exactly. Don't call it bloody soccer. Exactly. So I was on the, I had an interview with the BBC, and they were asking me, all right, Steve, because they all remember me from London and back in the day when I used to work for the Prime Minister in 10 Downing Street many years ago. And said, come on then, so how American are you really? Surely you're going to get the answer to this right. This is the brilliant. Remember, they feel very strongly about football because England invented football. And they said, so who are you supporting in the World Cup? And I said, Team USA, of course. Team USA. Exactly. And it's going pretty well. But I got to tell you, I am also supporting Team California for the win. California is going to win this year as well. And it's going to be such a beautiful thing. Exactly as Gloria said, what an amazing birthday present to have our state, this incredible state that in so many ways represents the best of America. Everything we think of as amazing about our country, energy and optimism and ambition and innovation and the rebel spirit, that's California more than anywhere else. What an incredible thing to restore California to the glory that we were and will be again. And here's why it's so special. And I want to explain what's been going on in the context of our 250th birthday as a nation. Why is it that America has been so incredibly successful, still after all these years, the greatest nation anywhere, with incredible accomplishments and people and achievements year after year, generation after generation? We keep producing incredible results here in America. And it goes right back 250 years. What we'll actually be celebrating on the day itself, the Declaration of Independence. And when they declared independence, they wrote that wonderful document. And there's a line in there that I always think of, actually, when I think about California. So they were throwing off the shackles of rule by the Brits. By the way, not my people. I just want to reassure you, for those who don't know, I've talked about it often. My parents are Hungarian, both my parents, so that was nothing to do with me. Although actually, were you there at Fresno? Who was there in Fresno? David Tongipai, our friend David Tongipai, is a fantastic member of the legislature in the assembly. Great friend of mine. And he said, why not? Let's have Steve Hilton as our governor. After all, this great nation was founded by a bunch of angry Brits, angry with what's going on. So they were throwing off the shackles of rule from afar. And there's a line in the Declaration that I really think of all the time when I think about California. And they're talking about why it's right to rise up in revolution, because they tried to do it peacefully, tried to get their freedom a different way. And said after they described a long train of abuses and usurpations. And that always stuck with me, that line, when I think about California. 16 years we've been governed by one party. And that's what it's been like. A long train of abuses and usurpations. Our power taken away from us with this big, bossy, bureaucratic, nanny state government telling us what to do from morning till night, how to live our lives, how to raise our kids, how to run our businesses, what kind of car to drive, what kind of house to live in, how to cook our food. Can't toast a tortilla on an electric stove, exactly as Gloria says. So it's not right. It's not California. This is the home of freedom more than anywhere else in America. And what you've got going on right now is this government that seems to be very good at telling us how to do our business. They never stop lecturing us and telling us what to do. They can't seem to get there. I was going to say something rude. I'm not going to do that. They can't seem to get their act together. Why don't they do their job a little bit better and leave us to get on with ours? They can't do anything. They can't build a train. They can't clear the homelessness. They can't run elections. We've just seen that. And all the while, more and more taxes to pay for them telling us what to do. We're done with that. We've had enough of that. Their time is up. And then the other thing that's made America so successful, the reason that this nation is still a leader in so many ways, in every way, the greatest nation anyone's ever seen. Now, if you go from one of the founding documents, the Declaration, to the other, the great Constitution of our nation, one of the ideas in that that's been so powerful and so responsible for everything that we've achieved, checks and balances. One of the most famous phrases when people think about the Constitution, the idea of checks and balances. That's why America has been so successful, because we've never allowed, as so many other countries have, anything to go too far in one direction, an ideology to take hold. Because every time that's happened in human history, you look anywhere around the world, socialism and communism and also the right-wing versions of it, when an ideology goes too far in one direction and it gets into extremism, it always ends badly. There's no accountability. People lose touch with reality. They're just pushing their own ideas rather than taking care of the people. It always ends badly when things go to the extreme. And that's what's happened here in California, because in these 16 years, we haven't had checks and balances where they've had every statewide elected office and the legislature, both chambers of 2/3 majority, and every big city and every big county and the state Supreme Court with a 6-1 majority. No, it's not healthy. It's not healthy to have that kind of government. We need some balance in our government in California, and we are going to restore that balance this year. And that's why you see in all of these polls now, it's very clear. It's why I'm very confident we can do this. You're right, we can get this done this year because there's a majority now. You look, if you compare to the last governor's race in 2022, and the simple, the most direct indicator of whether an election is going to be what they call a change election, where they kick out the people in power and put someone new in, is that question, is the state or the country or whatever it is going in the right direction or wrong direction? Right track, wrong track. 4 years ago, that wrong track number in California was mid to high 40s, 40%, 45%, something like that. Today, mid to high 50s. It's even been over 60%. There was a poll just the other day, 66% of Californians think we need a major and complete overhaul of our system of government in California. Let's put it very simply. There is a majority for change in California. We're going to lead that majority to victory. And just at the moment when Californians are demanding change, look who the other side put forward as their candidate. Javier Becerra, the living embodiment of more of the same. 36 years, a career politician in the machine that's done so much damage, that's given us the highest poverty rate in the country, tied with Louisiana, the highest unemployment rate in America, the highest cost of living by far. Gas, housing, everything, the most expensive anywhere. And they give us someone who, when asked, when confronted with those facts about their record on CNN, and he was asked, what would you change? Anything you would have done differently? He said, no. Any policies you would change? Not really. Things are okay because, a lot of people are still coming to Disneyland. That's literally what Becerra said. With that answer, that's where he belongs, in Disneyland, because he's a joke. So you've got a candidate who is directly offering more of the same. When people want change, more of the same: cost, incompetence, failure, and corruption. And just to pick on one of those, I'm going to get to your question. I want to talk about Becerra the whole time, but I just want to remind everyone that he was in Biden's cabinet, and the reviews were not good from his own colleagues. Susan Rice, Joe Biden's national security advisor, I'm quoting now, described Becerra as an idiot. So that's from his own colleagues. There was someone on CNN just the other day saying he was completely ineffective. And I've got to ask, how useless do you have to be if you're considered too incompetent for Joe Biden's cabinet? It's not a good recommendation, but it's all right. We don't have to worry about him. He's not going to be the next governor. We're going to be the team that leads our state. We're going to turn things around. We're going to have those businesses coming back to California. We're going to make California open for business, cut the regulations, get rid of the ridiculous fees and fines and red tape and the lawsuits, all the things that are driving business away. We are going to make our state Californiable. That's what we're going to do when we're elected. That's what people are demanding. We are demanding that change, and we're going to deliver it. Simple, positive, practical things that everybody can get behind. Exactly as Gloria said, it's not Republican or Democrat. It's just common sense. $3 gas. Cut your electric bills in half. Your first 150 grand tax-free. A home you can afford to buy. Starter homes for young people. Make our state Cal affordable. That's how we're going to win this election. And when we've won, it's going to be a magnificent day. I mean, we might take more than a day at this rate to find out the results. I think they take a little bit of time, don't they? They like to keep us waiting. But we'll get there. And then when we take office in January, you'll see the change very quickly because we have the people, we have the policies, we have the plans, we've done the work. We're going to get started straight away. You're going to see it's going to be a very busy day one, as Michael often points out. We got a lot to get to. You will see the changes very quickly. The regulations lifted from our businesses, the water flowing to our farmers, the oil flowing to our refineries so we can reduce gas prices, the forest properly managed, the timber harvested so we can provide beautiful single-family homes for our young people so they can have that California dream of a home you can afford to buy right here in our state instead of moving. That is all going to happen, and it's going to be an incredible time for our state, just as we remember that this was once and will be again the best place, not just in America, but in the world, to start and raise a family, to start and grow a business. Nowhere better than California. We got everything we need in this state. We got the most incredible natural beauty. We got the best weather. We got fantastic culture. We got the great people in this room and in our movement for change. We've got entrepreneurs and innovation and great universities. We got everything we need in this state, except a good governor. And very soon we'll have that as well. Thank you very much, everybody. All right. Let's go.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much. First of all, Steve, thank you so much for running. We finally have a governor that can win. And I truly am down here because I truly believe he can win. He's got a great team. But I think in this position, energy matters. He's got the energy. And he's a nice guy. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to say that in 2017, I saw gas in Woodland Hills for $2.39. Yes, I did. I wish I had my camera. I would have taken a picture. But the question I wanted to ask you is my brother asked to ask you, how are you going to implement the $150,000 less on,
Yes.
on that? And one other thing, what did you like that Reagan did that we don't have now? How can we bring some of Reagan back?
Well, let me start with the tax plan. So we just updated, actually. We're going to reprint these because if you remember last year, when I launched my campaign in April and we've been on the road, the tax plan that I put forward had two parts to it. Your first 100 grand tax-free, and above that, a flat tax of 7.5%. Because our taxes are not just too high, they're way too complicated. And that's one of the reasons so many people are leaving. I actually wanted to update your number. You said 1.5 million. Anyone see Fareed Zakaria on CNN last Sunday? It's amazing. And a lot of it was shared. He did a 6.5-minute thing on California. And this is his quote. This is what he described California as: the failed model of governance. And he was talking about all the people and businesses leaving. His number was 1.9 million. 1.9 million Californians leaving in the last 7 years, during Gavin Newsom's time as governor. It's just unbelievable. So we had this plan, which was 100,000 tax-free, 7.5% flat tax above that, lower, simpler taxes. One of the things that I love about these events is that we get feedback. You ask questions, you make points and comments, you learn so many of the things that we're putting forward in this campaign. For example, capping vehicle registration, which in other states is under $100. Here, $800, $900, how much do you pay? I mean, $600, $700, it's a huge amount of money for vehicle registration. We're going to end all that nonsense, cap it at the flat registration fee of $71 a year per vehicle. So these are the kinds of things that come from these events. And one of the things that I was hearing actually was people saying, we love that first 100 grand tax-free, but there's a lot of people earning between 100 and 150. And that's honestly, for maybe people in other states, that sounds like a lot of money. In California, with everything being so expensive, it's a real struggle. You're on 120, 130, and it sounds crazy to others in other states, but by the way, in a number of counties in California, including this one, the official definition of low income is $100,000. So it's not a huge, so taking that feedback into account, we said, let's lift up that threshold. That's how we got to 150,000. That's the new plan. But to make it work, we've just slightly increased the flat tax rate to 8%. So that's the total. If we were to implement all of that in 1 year, that would reduce revenue to the state of California by about $50 billion. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but all it does is take the budget back to what it was in 2020, around the time of the pandemic. Gavin Newsom's budget. If we just did the first part, the 150,000 threshold, that's about $25 billion. That takes the budget back to what it was 3 years ago. This isn't some outlandish, impossible dream. It's literally Gavin Newsom's budget from 3 years ago. So don't tell me we can't find $25 billion in the state budget, which is just, 360 they've just put. I mean, they've doubled the budget in the last 10 years. Is everything twice as good? So we're going to cut out that kind of spending and waste. That's why one of the things that we've been doing so far is identifying in our campaign wasteful spending in the government. And it's not just specific programs. It's actually the whole way we spend money. I met someone who runs a public works contracting business. She literally builds things like roads and whatever. They operate all over the country. She said it costs 4 times as much to build the exact same piece of road in California as it does in Texas, where they also operate. And by the way, where their roads are better. Why is it so expensive here? Because of the layers and layers of bureaucracy and nonsense. The environmental regulations, exactly, and the processes and the lawsuits you have to cover. This is endless nonsense that's accumulated in these 16 years of one-party rule without any checks and balances. So I'm very confident that we can find that waste and inefficiency in our government to reduce the spending, reduce the bloat, so we can deliver real relief for so many hard-pressed Californians. Your first 150 grand tax-free.
Thanks so much. I'm Andy Klein, and I was a Democrat, and I re-registered as a Republican, and I know waste, fraud, all that stuff. Here's 4 things. The CRV. We all have these bottles and cans here. That's corruption. We're all getting, the 5 cents or 10 cents. We nowhere to return them because the homeless, showed up at all the recycling places, and it was a disaster. Carpool lanes that are 24/7. Why? That, and then the toll lanes at the 405, I guess that's done now. But these toll lanes, it could cost you $18 to get to Costa Mesa just from like Long Beach. I don't understand. Did we vote for that? And the lottery, another place where there's just fraud, corruption.
I hear about the lottery a lot. We're going to look into that. I just want to explain about the roads. It's a great example. So one of the things that drives up the cost of everything, the more I look at the different policy areas, there's the things that they have in common in terms of driving up the cost. It's these deals that they do with the unions. That's a big part of it. They have these things called project labor agreements that make the cost of everything much higher. Then you've got the lawsuits, the trial lawyers, who are the second biggest donors to Democrat politicians. It's completely corrupt. That's why you run a business today in California. If you start a business in California, the chances that you're going to be hit with a nuisance, extortionate, shakedown lawsuit, 90%. It's outrageous. I mean, I used to run restaurants. It's just a complete nightmare. And then the third one, and it's the one I mentioned about the roads, is the climate extremism. So we all love our environment in California. We're pro-environment. It's one of the wonderful things about our state. We love our magnificent natural beauty. We want to protect our open spaces, and of course we do. But they've taken it to the extreme. This is what happens when things go to the extreme. And now they put these climate-related charges and costs into absolutely everything. And then one of the things that they put in is called VMT. I don't know if you've heard about VMT. It stands for Vehicle Miles Traveled. And it's just another excuse that they use to gouge us. I mean, everywhere you look, you've got these gouging tax. I mean, there's the big taxes that we all are aware, income tax and so on, gas tax. Everywhere you look, there's these hidden taxes. There's something called impact fees that go on to housing. The estimate is it's now 20% of the cost of a new house is impact fees, which you don't even see. The house builder pays it, just going into their bottomless money pit. You've got the mileage tax that's coming now. They want to charge you, snoop on you everywhere you drive and charge you for that. I'm telling you right now, when I'm governor, they try and bring in that mileage tax. I am vetoing that, and I'm going to look forward to doing it. But the VMT is vehicle miles traveled. So they put in a charge, an actual tax for their estimate of how many miles will be driven, because they're so anti anyone driving anything. There's, even in Gavin Newsom's housing bill last year that he touted as the solution to the housing crisis, AB 130, there was a hidden charge in there, VMT, that would have added $325,000 to the cost of a single family home over 20 years. Their own in their own bill that they said was going to solve the housing crisis. I want to come back to your expressways on the 405. Do you know what they did? That you had one part of the government charging, so CARB, the California Air Resources, were charging VMT fees to the transportation, to the Caltrans for building the thing. You've literally got one bit of the government taxing another bit of the government because we end up paying for it. It's just insane what's going on. And that's why the answer is actually not that complicated. It's just a bit of sanity. That's what we're going to restore in our government. Just stop endlessly increasing spending and taxes and have a bit of good management and common sense.
Hello, Mr. Hilton. My name is Adam Vina. This is probably the second time I brought up. I'm actually running for California State Assembly, District 41, and I'll be moving on until November. But my question for you is, 2 weeks ago, the State Assembly just passed a bill, AB 1876, which is now forcing insurance companies to perform gender-affirming care on minors as young as 12. Also, under the Biden administration, his DOJ labeled parents as domestic terrorists. Parents are completely under attack in the state of California. I've got 4 years to save my son before they can start chemically castrating my son. My son is turning 8 on the 25th of this month. I need the reinsurance from your organization, your group. I know Sonia Shaw personally, and she's an absolute wonderful person, and I know I can trust her. I've sat down with Michael Gates for 3 hours a few months ago. I know I can trust him, but I need to know from Steve Hilton, what exactly are you going to do the day one to save our kids? What are you going to do to restore the parental rights in the state of California? Last thing, Ken Paxton in the state of Texas just opened a detransitioner clinic in his state to help detransitioner kids that have gone through the sex reassignment surgeries, whose breasts have been removed. What is Steve Hilton going to do to save the children of California?
I think that it's one of the things that I learned. Thank you. It's amazing when you see. This is just a classic example, a really dark and terrible example of what I was talking about earlier, when an ideology gets taken to the extreme. That's exactly what's happened here. And it's just completely extraordinary to me that we're even talking about this stuff. And yet they try and paint you as crazy for bringing it up. I know we talked about it. I remember when we first met in San Diego, and I feel so. You don't have to be a parent, by the way, to feel this, but every parent does. I want to just talk about one aspect. I'll get to what I'm going to do in a second, but just to show you how extreme this is. You know how on the left they love talking, Bernie Sanders, Medicare for all, universal health care. That's what they want in California, by the way. Socialized medicine. Well, I have some experience of that because that's what you got in the UK. The National Health Service, government run, the whole system. Well, they commissioned a report on this issue exactly that you're talking about. It was called the Cass report, Hilary Cass. She's a doctor who spent 2 years looking into this in great detail and came to the conclusion that this is just completely wrong and it should never happen. And that children who may be experiencing some form of gender dysphoria, whatever, we need to be compassionate. We need to allow people to make sure that we listen to what they're saying, but we don't carry out these kinds of irreversible procedures on children. And even the term gender affirming care itself, there's something deeply wrong with that. If you think about it in the context of other medical issues, you don't go to the doctor and you want them to affirm what you think. That's not how it works. This is pure ideology, and we have to stop it. I mean, one of the things that we talk about, and this is why we need this team to be elected, because actually the action that will be taken is going to come from the Attorney General. And there's also what the federal government is doing, which is to stop this from happening, which is being blocked by the California government. So I'll stop doing that. I'll ask Michael to speak about that issue, but I want to come back and speak to you about parental rights more broadly.
No, this is a perfect example of how working together is going to be so powerful. But I will tell you on day one, and this is a promise I've made on the campaign trail a number of times, and it will be reality on day one, because I have already also committed that it will be my first act that I do when I'm Attorney General the minute I'm sworn in. The very first thing I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is dismiss the newly filed lawsuits that Rob Bonta has filed, our Attorney General has filed against hospitals, including a children's hospital, to force them to perform trans surgeries on minors. I'm going to dismiss those lawsuits within minutes of being sworn in. And I'm also going to make it very well known in the education community when it comes to the counselors attempting to groom children into being a trans mindset, and also the medical community, that if anybody mutilates a child, I will criminally prosecute them. Yeah. And one of the things that we'll do with Steve Hilton when he's governor is we are going to work with the federal government. I don't know the status of that Biden declaration. I assume Trump has already reversed it. But we will obviously be working with the federal government as well, because one of the primary functions of government is to protect the most vulnerable in our society. And nobody on my watch is going to mutilate children and go after our children. Nobody on my watch. If there's anything I can do, I'm going to stop it.
And then just more exactly, and then just more broadly on the question of parental rights. It's incredibly important, and especially, I'd say one of the things that has been most horrifying to me, what I've really learned as part of this process of traveling the state and meeting people like yourself. I've got to be honest. I've been working on a lot of the policy issues affecting California for many years now. I wrote a book, Califailure. I had a policy organization, Golden Together. Gloria and I started that 3 or so years ago. And so, I feel like I know the issues and gas prices, all these things. The single thing that has most shocked and horrified me on the road is stories like yours. And almost every event, there's someone asks a question like this. And they're all slightly different versions. I mean, I'm not going to repeat them all now, but here's my conclusion. There's something really wrong and dark that has infected the whole administration and bureaucracy around what they call children and family services, both at the state level, the state agency, and at the counties. And and it goes to the family court system and how that's the ideology that's in play there, and it is deeply anti-family. It's hurting children, and it's devastating parents like yours, and it makes me so angry. Now, the reason I'm not going to say I can fix it all on day one, because actually we've got to start fixing it on day one. We are going to completely clean out those agencies in Sacramento from these ideologues who want to push their ideological objective even when it hurts kids and families. So we've got to, and that's the power of the governor, because you run these agencies and you appoint people to these agencies. And we are going to kick out the ideologues and the extremists, and we're going to put common sense people in there who really will put the interests of parents and children and families first. I promise you that. Thank you.
Back here.
Oh,
Hi, my name is Fatima, and I am an Iraqi war veteran. I'm taking this opportunity to ask you that we deserve better for us veterans, and if there's any way that you can help us with property taxes, as property taxes continue to increase, and because we're on fixed income,
Yeah.
a lot of us are ending up on, either on the street or having to sell our home because we can't afford it. The second question is there any way to stop the AI data centers that are being built here in California? They're trying to build 54 of them, and they're going to cause a lot of climate issues, such as there's going to be a lot of radiation. It's going to deplete our water resources, as we are always in a drought here in California. And if they decide to build next to farmland, all of the livestock is going to end up dying, because every time they become pregnant, they have stillborns. And one last thing, if there's anything that you can do for landlords, because they're taking away the private rights of landlords, and it's becoming to be such a burden on the landlords, because everything is skyrocketing here. Thank you for your opportunity.
Thank you for your service. Thank you very much. We all appreciate that very much. And for some great questions, let me go through quickly. The first one is the easiest one, because I've already published a plan on this. I've got a great former Army general advising me on veterans issues, Eldon Regwa, and we published a plan. We actually outside the California Department of Veterans Affairs in Sacramento a few months ago, and we've got a very straightforward plan. It's the least we can do. So when I'm governor, veterans will pay no income tax and no property tax. That's my commitment. We've published that. That's a plan that we've already published. You can find it on our website. In terms of I agree with you that there's a lot of issues around the data centers, and I completely agree with you on the farmland. One of the things that I'm most upset about, and I was just in the Central Valley yesterday. I'm there a lot. You're not going to have a bigger and stronger champion for our farmers than me. We've got to support our farmers. It's one of our great industries. And so we can't have farmland being, this is what they do, and it connects to the water issue, because basically they deny the farmers the water, and then they say, well, we can't make money doing farming anymore because they can't give us any water, so we'll have to put in data centers or solar panels or whatever. No, it's completely outrageous. I'm going to stop the insanity of ripping out farms to replace them with solar farms. No, that's going to end. And the same with the data centers. They can't be anywhere in a position where they will do any damage to our great farmland. I completely agree with that. I also agree that we've got to make sure that none of this actually adds to the costs and the burdens that we have in California, for example, on electricity prices and so on. But there's a way of doing that, same with water, because right now, because of these ideological policies that we've got, they're constantly trying to restrict whatever it may be, no housing, no electricity, climate, water. They've got this ideology of scarcity, right? That everything you do is somehow bad for the environment. And they kind of see people as pollution. And that's just the wrong attitude. We can have abundant water in California. We just need to capture it and store it and get it to the places where it's needed. And I'm going to make sure we get that done. Same with electric. We can have abundant electricity. Our electric bills are more than twice the national average. They've doubled in the last 10 years, entirely because of their ideological policies saying the only form of electricity you can have is wind and solar. It's just ridiculous. We've got natural gas-fired power stations that are running at 10 to 15% of their capacity because they don't want to have any kind of fossil fuels, even though we're now importing nearly 80% of the oil that we use. We're not using any less, we're just importing it. It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. We're going to use California energy to power our economy, and then we're going to bring the prices down, and we're going to have plenty of electricity and water if we just free ourselves of these ideological constraints. The third point you made about landlords is really a really serious one, which is that we talk about the housing crisis, and that we do have a housing crisis, and one of the reasons that the prices are so high, there's not enough supply, and there's a whole plan I've got to reduce the building codes so that we don't have, it's not so expensive to build here, and stop the lawsuits that are getting in the way of housing being built. And there's all these things we can do. But specifically on landlords, it's a really great point. Right now in California, the estimate is, remember what people say in terms of how many housing units we need in order to get a sort of more reasonable situation. The estimate, this is the high end of the estimate, is about 3 million. That's what generally assumed to be the number. Right now in California, there's about 1.5 million properties that are empty, just sitting there. The people don't want to rent because of all the restrictions that you're talking about. It's another example of things being extreme. In the name of protecting renters, you've now put all the rights with them, and landlords just don't want anything to do with it because it's a nightmare. And so that we have to bring that back into balance. That actually will increase the supply of housing that we have. So it's just common sense. The other point is that, I mean, you talk to people in some of the cities, and you've got really aggressive attacks on landlords, and then they sue them, or they fine them for having empty properties, even though the reason is because they're stupid policies. And then there's a lawsuit, and then the taxpayers are funding the non-profits lawsuits and paying their legal fees against landlords. The whole system is stacked against landlords, and it's really hurting the interests of especially young people who want somewhere to live. So you're right, and it's going to change.
Hello. And I want to say thank you again to the gentleman who took a step to the right. We appreciate you. That raised a very important question, Adam did. Sacramento, as we know, is a cesspool. Gloria knows it well because you were the assembly leader when you were Democrat. So this question is for all three of you. Given that it's likely going to be still a hostile environment in the state assembly and state senate, what are the specific things you can each do? You talked about that a little, Michael, on day one, completely within your own power and not having to worry about the supermajority in Sacramento.
Thank you. I'll go for it. There's actually a really long list. I've been doing the work. So just, to pick one at random, anyone who's been on it's one of those things where if you know, you know. If you run a restaurant, one of these other businesses, you may well have been hit by a PAGA lawsuit, Private Attorney General Act. It's a classic example of the shakedown by the trial lawyers. That's something that actually I've spent a lot of time on because it's really hurting small businesses. You can stop that on day one by appointing a labor commissioner who is on the side of business and adhering to the actual process that's in the law. That's just a small example. I'm going to give you a couple and then we'll move on. We mentioned oil and gas prices. One of the ways that we reduce gas prices is to stop the insanity of importing oil from halfway around the world when we have abundant oil reserves right here in California. They say it's all about EVs. Do you know the proportion of cars and of vehicles on our roads in California that are EVs? 7%. 93% of the vehicles on our roads run on gas or diesel. So what are we doing trying to shut that down? That is something that you can open as governor directly through your appointments to an agency called CalGEM, Geologic Energy Management. Kick out the climate fanatics, put in their pro-energy people, and let's get the oil flowing here in California. Then the broader point is that actually as governor, you run the executive branch. So many of the crazy things that are making everything such a nightmare in California in terms of cost and hassle and bureaucracy is coming out of these agencies. The governor has over 4,000 appointments to over 200 agencies, boards, and commissions. We're going to be ready on day one to kick out the people who are causing such a nightmare for California families and businesses and scale that whole bureaucracy back. And what we're left with, we're going to put good common sense people in there. All right.
Thank you. And let me point out that this is Miss Roxanne Ho. She is the chair of the LA County GOP Committee. Thank you for your service. And it's very important to note that nobody gets to Sacramento without the vote from LA County. We are what, a fourth of the vote that sends us to Sacramento. So remember Olga, how she stepped up. I want you guys to meet. If we do our part, 25% of the vote. And we need you. We need you big time. Okay, so having said that, there's something that we will all do. Some of them are more exciting than others. As Lieutenant Governor, I will be the president of the Senate. I was the majority leader of the state Senate before, so I tell people I know where the bodies are buried. I know the rules of the game. I know the rules. They're not going to pull any fast ones on me. Day one, what I'm going to do, it may not sound very exciting, but it's got to be done. I am going to sit down with all 40 senators, Republican and Democrat, because once we finish campaigning, we go to governing. No more partisanship, no more campaigning, it's work. And so I'm going to sit down with all 40 senators, and the reason being is because it is the Senate that does the confirmation of all of these agencies, et cetera, the regions, the trustees, the board, the coastal commissioners that sometimes go wacko, you name it, land commission. So we are going to sit down. I'm going to sit down and basically say, the people have spoken. You, starting in LA County, have sent us to do the people's work. This is the government. This is the administration. These are the people that are part of the team. We don't want lawfare. We don't want you holding up people like they did, for example, President Trump in his first term playing lawfare. We're not going to appoint you. So that's going to be very important, sitting down with them right away to say, let's get to work. The games are over. The work begins. That's my day one. Not very exciting, but somebody's got to do it. Lieutenant Governor's going to do it. Mike.
Thank you. So the Attorney General actually has a lot of responsibility, a lot of independent authority, and frankly I think it's far too critical of a position these days because our Attorney Generals have been so bad, right? The Attorney General used to be, if you go back a few decades, relatively inconsequential. As long as the Attorney General was enforcing the criminal laws and giving good advice to state agencies, then it was like it was just another position in government that helped make government work. But because, and since Kamala Harris and then Becerra and Bonta, they have done such a terrible job, and it's created a lawlessness in California. I mean, the fact that our state can say, we're just not going to enforce Prop 36 because we don't have funding. Where's our Attorney General in that? Or we're gonna pass a Stop Nick Shirley Act. Where is our Attorney General on that? So the Attorney General is the chief legal counsel to all state agencies, chief legal counsel to the governor, lieutenant governor, to Secretary of State, to the legislature. So I'm there to give them guidance, right? And one of the things I'm going to do on day one is be Steve's legal bodyguard and make sure that I defend him and allow him and support him in everything that he wants to do. But there's a whole lot of other stuff that we're going to do. Like I said, I'm going to dismiss those lawsuits that basically compel mutilation of children. We're going to be Title IX compliant up and down the state, like I said, because I am going to issue an opinion to all of the education systems, the school boards and the districts, letting them know what Title IX is and how to be compliant. I am going to stop the Nick Shirley Act. I'm going to stop the Stop Nick Shirley Act because I'm not going to enforce it because it violates your federal rights. I'm going to tell every one of my 58 sheriffs in the state of California that if they are not issuing concealed carry weapons permits within 90 days, they're in violation of the Second Amendment. So there's a whole lot of stuff that we're going to do on day one just to come into compliance. Compliance with federal law is critical. And remember, that's federal immigration law. California is now not compliant with federal immigration law, which is the exclusive purview of the federal government. We have no business messing with immigration policy or enforcement. We don't have that legal right as a state. And then federal election integrity laws. You know, when I was with the Department of Justice last year, I was the one that sued California from the Department of Justice for violating federal elections laws. And on day one, we're going to be compliant with federal elections laws, and we're going to enforce the state elections laws. Right now, we aren't even compliant with our own state laws. So there's a whole host of things that I can do on day one, and the legislature can't stop me. And I'd love to have Steve Hilton as governor so we can work together on a lot of these issues. But there is independent authority. If you look under Article 5, Section 13 of the California Constitution, it lays out all of the responsibilities of the Attorney General. And I am going to do all of these on day one. Even if the legislature and others are against me, it's going to happen. So it's going to be a great day on day one.
Okay. There's a second lady at the back and the gentleman there. Okay, but I want to say something because I realized I didn't answer a question. No, we'll get to you in a second. There's a question I didn't answer. I want to give you a very quick answer about Reagan. Someone said, was it what? It's a really important one. I was just reminded of it when you said all these terrible people that we've had elected. We used to have, of course, great Republican governors, and President Reagan was such an inspiration. And the thing I take from him, which I will bring to this office, is just this incredible optimism about people and about this state. Because that's how I feel about California. And you just look at just even this amazing place. I have the great honor and privilege of traveling this whole state. I've been doing it for over a year. It's an amazing state. There are so many incredible people. Everywhere you go, you see people inventing new things and building incredible businesses from nothing. Just yesterday, I'm not even going into it. Just amazing people everywhere you go. And so, all we need to do is get the government back in its box so that people can thrive and flourish and build this state up just like we used to do. The lady at the back.
I have two statements to say. Number one is that what they've done is that they have taken a law in their own hands and banned certain weapons in the state. And that's a very serious problem that we have dealing with the Second Amendment, because they're conflicting. They're banning our weapons, our right to bear and keep arms, our right to have our, the choice, the freedom of choice, what we want for defense. And second was they want to legalize non-citizens, in LA City Council just passed it, that they want to legalize non-citizens to vote. That includes illegal aliens. Anybody from the whole planet can come and vote now. That's LA City Council for you.
Thank you very much. So just quickly, when we get to the, Michael's already mentioned about the Second Amendment. We published our plan to restore the protections of the Second Amendment and comply with our Constitution. And so we feel very strongly about that. And we're going to start the most direct action will be on concealed carry. We're going to make sure that every part of the state government is Second Amendment compliant, and then a full review of all these laws that have been passed so that we can start to restore those protections. It's something we take very seriously. In terms of voting, I mean, the voting thing is just another example of how it's just what I said at the beginning, just extremism, just things taken to an extreme. Of course, it's true that we love and appreciate immigration in this state. We're built like that. I mean, look, I'm an immigrant. I'm the legal immigrant running for governor to be the candidate for the legal immigrant community so that we can have the California dream. But I remember in the debates, the governor's debates, there was some jokey, I can't remember which one it was with Katie Porter. And I know, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say anything. Look, exactly, keep it positive. Okay, we don't need to be mean. She only got 4%. The thing is, she said something that basically revealed that they truly don't seem to understand the difference between legal and illegal immigration. They really don't seem to understand the difference. And you see it all the way through these policies. For example, the scandal, which we will end, I will absolutely be a day one thing to the budget, because the thing you also do on day one as governor is you send the budget to the state legislature. You write the budget. And I tell you what won't be in the budget when I'm governor, $20 billion of your taxes from people who can barely afford healthcare because the costs have gone up so high, being spent on free healthcare for illegal immigrants. No, that is going to end. Gentleman at the back, yeah.
We have time for one last question,
Okay.
and then we'll line up for a photo line up front.
Yeah, actually, can I just say something about that? Because we've got to be out of here at 5, and I know that everyone likes to get photos, so that's going to take a bit of time because there's a lot of you. So if you want, we can do one sort of big group photo and keep going with questions, or we'll have to stop and do the photos. So it's kind of up to you. Big photo. Okay, we'll keep going with the questions. All right. So we can have more than one. All right.
Okay.
Let's go.
Governor Hilton, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the sound of that.
And
Very good.
we have to make sure that you get in to make all of your wonderful policies effective, right? That's the only way that they will work is if you are actually our governor. What have you given thought to as to how you can try to prevent the election from being stolen from you? The way it was from Donald Trump in 2020 and the way it was just stolen from Spencer Pratt in the LA primary mayoral race. We can't have it stolen away from you.
So I just want to. Michael's going to speak to some of the specifics because actually, when you look at what might be in place for November, it's actually encouraging. Some positive changes are in the works, and he'll speak to that in a second. From my point of view, it's actually something we can all do. We can all do because there's a very simple phrase that I think we all know, and we first started hearing it in 2024, and it's absolutely, I think some of you were saying it already, too big to rig. That's the answer. That is the actual answer. There's so much wrong with our election system in California. I mean, I was out there that first week when they were still, I was leading, and then they were still counting, and made all these specific practical changes, proposals for changes that I would make as governor to the speed and the count. And there's so much wrong with it. The idea of universal mail-in ballots being sent to everyone when we have all these wrong names on the voter rolls. No, that's ridiculous. Ballot harvesting is ridiculous. It used to be the case that you could hand in a ballot for someone who, if you knew them and you weren't able to get to the poll. Now it's like hundreds, thousands of ballots handed in by union activists, and they've built a machine to do this. It's actually perfectly legal. It's outrageous and corrupt, but they've built this machine. We only have one response. There's only one response that makes sense. The too big to rig response. We got to work incredibly hard for every single vote. Every single vote. And I want to give you the numbers now, just to show you, because of course, as I said earlier, there's a majority of Californians who want change. And we're going to get that big vote because it's a majority. So that means we're going to have Democrats, we're going to have independents. It's a big movement, just as we saw. People who have had enough and think even if it's not time, they're going to become a Republican, they're going to vote for change and some balance. So we are going to get people from right across the spectrum. But I just want to give you the numbers just for Republicans, by the way. When people say, oh, a Republican can't win in California, there's not enough, there are actually. You look at some of these numbers that we saw, just a very simple point, the estimate of how many votes there will be in the general election this November, and you work out the math on that, the target is around 6 million votes to win, something like that, to win statewide. President Trump in California in 2024 got 6.1 million votes. It's not true that the votes aren't there. They are there. Now, it's not going to be enough. I want to be really clear about that. But we've got great opportunities in November to get a big turnout, to make it a big election. We've got voter ID on the ballot in November. Remember, look at the fact that you had 70% of Californians voted for Prop 36, which is basically shows you the desire for change in this state. That's how we're going to pull this off. But every single one of you here, every single one of you has a part to play in that by getting at least one, maybe more. But that's what I'm talking about. You don't have to go and get hundreds of people to vote. You don't have to harvest ballots like that. But just one or two people who wouldn't have voted because maybe they think, oh, it's a midterm election. I sit it out. I only vote in presidential elections. If you just change that person's mind and say, no, come on, let's do it this time. You've got to vote for change in November. That's how we do it. Every single one of you can do that. I really want you to appreciate your power to make this happen.
Yeah, so as you know from what I mentioned earlier, I've done election integrity work for years. In fact, I've actually been in court litigating this stuff myself So I was the architect of the voter ID law in Huntington Beach, and then Rob Bonta came down and sued Huntington Beach for daring to adopt its own local election integrity measure. And more than that, he ran to the legislature. He ran to the legislature and said, you need to pass a ban on cities adopting local voter ID laws. So after Huntington Beach adopted it, he ran to the legislature. It's AB 1174. If you look it up, that's the ban on local voter ID. So then he came to Huntington Beach and sued us. It went through the courts. It's out actually before the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll see if they take it up. But so that's been up on appeals. But the interesting thing about one of the Court of Appeal decisions in that case is, and this is hard to believe, but the Court of Appeal decided that a local municipal election is a matter of statewide concern. Now that's hard to imagine, right? And in fact, I think that's just not true. I mean, that's just an error in law. But so be it, because now Huntington Beach is looking at using that authority, that a municipal election is a matter of statewide concern, to turn around and sue Los Angeles for allowing non-citizens to vote. Because if it's a matter of statewide concern, then Huntington Beach is probably going to go in first and sue LA for doing what they're doing, even though it shouldn't matter to Huntington Beach what happens in LA, right? So we'll see how that goes. But just a few points of hope, as Steve was pointing out. So when we at the Department of Justice started putting pressure on states for violating federal elections law, a lot of that had to do with the voter rolls. When we put pressure on California, there was an estimated, rough numbers, 10 million errant names on the voter rolls, right? Dirty names, right? About 10 million. After we started applying pressure, about 3.5 million of those came off. So that's an improvement. It's not perfect, but things are getting better. But the other thing that's coming down in November that's going to be at play is the President of the United States just implemented a new executive order. That executive order, I happen to have been one of the early drafters of that executive order when I was back at the Trump administration last year. But that executive order basically dictates to the United States Postal Service, which is a federal agency, so Trump has purview over that agency, what it can and cannot do when it comes to processing mail-in ballots. So there's certain requirements. In order for the USPS to even accept them, they have to be barcoded. There's got to be all these control mechanisms. The Postal Service cannot be flooded with a bunch of fake ballots, right? So there are going to be controls put in place by the United States Postal Service. So that's an improvement. Is that going to be a perfect system? No, but is that an improvement? It's a dramatic improvement. And then the final big point is, and I always tell people this, help is on the way. The United States Supreme Court is going to be issuing a decision very, very soon on what is Election Day. All right? That is the Watson versus Republican National Committee case out of Mississippi, the Fifth Circuit, and it was already argued by the parties in front of the United States Supreme Court. All that's left is for the U.S. Supreme Court to issue a decision. When it does, and the United States Supreme Court comes down on the side of what we think it's going to say, which is, yes, Election Day is Election Day and not election month or election 5 months, but Election Day is Election Day. Ladies and gentlemen, what's that going to do to the election system in California, right? Because if it's unconstitutional, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, then California can't do beyond what the Supreme Court says it can do, right? So we expect that decision to come down, which means, all of the bad actors or all the ne'er-do-wells or whoever tries to monkey with the election system after Election Day, or election results after Election Day, that's going to be cut off, we anticipate, by the U.S. Supreme Court. So, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people are concerned about the integrity of our election systems. I not only had to investigate that stuff for years, but I litigated that stuff for years. Take it from me, please. There's every reason to be hopeful in our system and to be hopeful in this election. Election integrity is higher this year, coming November, than it has been in recent memory. So I say, like Steve says, go out and vote, get 100 of your friends to go out and vote, and let's make it too big to rig in the first place, but let's have hope in our system. We can win California, but we need hope and we need action by the voters.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, right. All right, come on. Oh, you've been waiting a long time as well, yeah.
I'll go quickly.
Wait. Yeah.
Okay. Richard Blake, I would like to call you governor. I just wish you could run for U.S. president. And I want
One step at a time, okay?
I want to tell you, first of all, I missed the next revolution on Sunday nights, and I celebrated the night you were wrapped around with the American flag, celebrating your citizenship. I'm a retired teacher, 37 years, high school. I have the scars to prove it. By the way, on one occasion, they brought in this new congressman, Javier Becerra, and he's a very, very nice guy, and that's about it. But I want to ask you, I have your book here, and in your book you talk about tenure for teachers, and I want to know what you want to do about tenure for teachers. Some of us are pretty good. And what you want to do about merit pay for teachers. Who deserves to get merit pay? Because some of us are pretty good.
I agree. Look, I mean, on tenure, I don't understand how that's even a thing. The point about academic tenure was to protect academic freedom in universities. It's not as a job guarantee program. I mean, who else has tenure in their jobs? It's ridiculous. Yes, I mean, the numbers vary, but I mean, the extreme end, it's 16 months of doing your job. It's ridiculous, completely ridiculous. Now, there's been court cases over the years, and so that's a difficult thing to change. I'm just being honest about it, and unilaterally as the governor, but there actually, as you are the employer in many ways, and so there's some things that we can do. The most important thing that we're going to do, Gloria and I talked about this, and we published our plan around this. In fact, why don't you, the grade for, that was your point about accountability and transparency for teachers and schools.
This is such an important question. And the reason why it's so important is because it's not only education, but education is almost half the entire state budget, almost half. That's how important this question is. Again, for the record, I have tenure. I am a professor from the University of California State University, Professor Emeritus. But I believe in meritocracy. I believe in looking at providing some portion of a teacher's performance to student outcome. You've got to have something, because right now in our education system, we have over half of our kids who cannot read at basic levels of proficiency. They can't do basic math. The University of California as well, premier institution in the world, they recently released a report showing that 1 out of 8 of its incoming freshmen cannot do math at college level. So then it means remediation. And then you're basically having students go into remedial classes that don't even count for a college degree. So it is a problem. So Steve and I did put out a plan overall. We've got to have the transparency. We've got to have the reporting. We have to fix education. Sadly, right now, the most powerful political force in California, it's not big oil. It's not the pharmaceutical companies. It's not Elon Musk. Okay. It is the teachers union. It's the biggest war chest. And these are the ones who you asked about parents. Parents need to be very involved. You've got to know what's happening in your classroom. We believe in having school choice and hold charter schools as well too, to the same standards, to high standards. But we've got to turn around education so it's not indoctrination. It's not the political force. It is one where most teachers in the profession want to be treated as professionals. They know who the bad teachers are, who the good teachers are. They know who are the teachers who are molesting students and districts are stuck with them because of tenure. They can't get kicked out. They get lawsuits right away and hire lawyers. So it's a big mess overall, but we can do it. There is litigation as again, to our governor, our soon-to-be governor has said. But I think the most important thing that I would end up with is, number one, fighting for school choice. We will initiate that as a conversation again to get it through hard, heavy lifting. But also remember, it is the governor, confirmed by the Senate with the lieutenant governor as the president of the Senate, who will appoint regents, board of education members, who will take this as sanity and start putting it out there, because school quality, great teachers, having some portion of a contract tied to student outcome, that's like an 80-20 issue. People support this whether you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, whatever. So it's good common sense. If you get a good common sense team in Sacramento, working with everybody, parking ideology, we can get it through. So that's how we feel about it.
Sorry. Oh, I'm taking over. You should. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. My name is Maricela, and I want to thank the Golden Ticket for choosing to basically have integrity and common sense in our system again. Related to all the stuff that we're hearing about Becerra, HHS, one of the things, this is the second year that I received this notice. My father is 86 years old. And this is for Medi-Cal, and it's an important notice regarding the medical estate recovery program for members 55 years of age and older. After a medical member passes away, the Department of Healthcare Services may seek repayment from their estate subject to probate for medical benefits on or about their 55th birthday. Repayment includes certain fee-for-services and managed care premiums, capitation payments. Repayment cannot exceed the value of a member's estate subject to probate. Now, when I hear probate, I'm thinking, okay, if you have estate planning, maybe you're covered, but how many people, seniors, would be affected by this and their families, who cannot afford to do estate planning?
So that's what they're taking the money back for the services and that's the federal system. Is that what you're saying? HHS. Yeah, I haven't heard that before. I'm going to look into that. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. That's a good example of useful these events because you learn good points that are bothering people, and then we'll develop a response. Thank you. Over there. Yeah. Lady at the I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Rachel. I just wanted to tell you that I was a poll worker in Temple City. My friend and I were. And so I wanted to say what I saw was disgusting. What you don't see is that there are duplicate names, duplicate addresses, duplicate birthdays. That's what happened. I was on an ebook and I see duplicates. So, and I saw, by the way, when I counting the ballot, I saw your name was really good. But so I asked my leader, what should I do about this? And she came and she looked at it. She says, well, I don't know. Just click on one and just let Norwalk take care of it. So that's what's happening. So, Susan and I and another lady, we were the only 3 Republicans working there. Everybody was. Then they accused us of asking for IDs, and we were not. So they came behind us, and they were like just watching us like hawks if we were asking to show IDs. So that's one thing I wanted to say to you. And I forgot the other one. It's important, but about the schools. The schools, the universities are corrupt. I know that there are very good teachers, but I'm going through hell with the DEI, with the transgendering, with how I'm supposed to. If I don't tell them what my pronoun is, I get stopped. It's a trouble. It's very troubling. If you have an application, you have to say transgender, male, female, or questioning. That's what you're supposed to. I mean, thank you very much, and I hope you win.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Roxanne? Okay, could you just tell everyone that? It's important.
If anybody does have actual fraud that they witnessed, of course, we're happy to send those to our friend Bill Asaley at the Department of Justice. So I have that email address, and actionable stuff there's a list of that. It's not just vibes. Thank you.
Thank you. And just on the DEI point, look, one of the things that will be such a refreshing change when you have us in there taking over the government bureaucracy in Sacramento is all these years, we've kind of got used to it, this ideology infecting everything and this bureaucratic, language that they use. And it's just this whole, takeover of everything with just things that are completely insane and fringe ideological obsessions. And that's just going to end. We're going to get rid of all of that. And because we can be running the executive branch. And so you can just restore what the government should be, which is there to provide basic services as efficiently as possible for the least amount of taxes that we can take from you. And that's it. Instead of constantly trying to kind of tell everyone how to live and how to think and boss people around. That's a whole approach that is just going to be deleted once you elect us to the state government.
And just one comment about the election integrity concerns at the counting facilities. Look, I said this earlier, Rob Bonta has allowed us to live in a lawless state. He's shutting down investigations into election integrity issues. He's not implementing them or instigating them, right? He's not commencing them. And what I'm going to do when I'm Attorney General is these types of stories will be investigated. Because why? Does anybody ever ask themselves why? Roxanne, you don't have to answer this, but I know you know Bill Asaley. He's a DOJ agent. He works for the federal government. Anybody wonder why we keep having to rely on the feds to investigate whether it's the waste, fraud, and abuse or election integrity issues? Because our Attorney General is not doing it. Right? These are literally state issues. These are state issues. And if there's a federal component to it, it's a tiny one. So when it comes to the federal elections issue, it's a tiny federal issue. It's a massive state issue. And yet our Attorney General is nowhere to be found on these. And another promise I will make to you is we will investigate every single one of those issues. Not just one here or there. Every single one will be investigated. And we will be complying with all state laws. A lot of ROVs and county clerks, they're not complying even with the state laws on election integrity. And so we are going to be compliant and we are going to be investigating. And I will tell you something too, ladies and gentlemen, when voter ID passes on the ballot, it's on the ballot. When it passes, which it will, because it's got about 80% support in California right now. Everybody loves voter ID, the concept of voter ID. They're going to be passing it. When it becomes the law of the land, and it will, there's no doubt, voter ID will be the law of the land. It will also be challenged. It will be taken to court and challenged as whatever, unconstitutional or whatever. Whose job is it to show up and defend it? The Attorney General. Okay, well, guess what? Bonta has already made it clear he does not support it. He will not show up to defend it. What happens when the AG does not show up to defend the law when it's challenged? It fails. It fails. And we have seen that with Prop 8. Do you remember Prop 8 under Kamala Harris? Traditional marriage. Marriage equals a man plus a woman. It passed overwhelmingly in California. It was the law of the land. Then it was challenged. Then it went to court. And then Kamala Harris did not show up, and so it failed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we need to keep fighting, but we need you, please, to get us into office. These scenarios will not be investigated. We will continue with the lawlessness, and you will not get your voter ID if we do not get elected. We have got to get a new team elected.
All right. So I'm afraid there's only time for one more. Do you want to choose?
Sure. Last question, and then stay in your seats for the group.
Thank you. Nice choice. Steve, congratulations to making it thus far. Hopefully we'll finish it up in November, yeah? A two-part question. The executive has massive powers, yeah, as governor. How do you plan on navigating, or what methods are you planning on using once you're there through the supermajority, that's the Democrat Party there? I'm guessing in tandem with hopefully the new Attorney General with you. So I know there are a lot of laws involved, or it encapsulates all of those things. So what are some of the things that you plan on doing? And also that very corrupt Pacific Coast Commission, as far, the fires and all that, with all of their draconian demands for environmental issues that we have. So just those two questions.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So the Coastal Commission is a good example. That's one of the hundreds of agencies where the governor appoints the people. You actually appoint 4 out of the 12 members. So it's become totally politicized. You look at what they say in their meetings. They're basically just political activists now, making their decisions based on ideology and their political prejudices. So we're going to kick out the people that are there that are appointed by Gavin Newsom, and others we're going to put in there sensible people who, and also one other point, very important on these agencies, many of them, and the Coastal Commission is a good example, they're acting way beyond the statutory powers, the powers that they have in legislation. They've gone rogue, these bureaucrats, and no one cares because they're basically pushing an agenda that the politicians agree with. But I'm not going to let them get away with that. We're going to rein them in. We're going to make sure that they don't start making things up and pushing some ideology. And all of these commissions and agencies, not just the Coastal Commission. On the legislature, there's a couple of things. It's a very important question. First of all, we are going to try and work very, very hard as a team and working with the state party. We are a real team this time. We're going to try and elect more Republicans to the state legislature this year. And we're going to focus our resources. So we're not just going to assume that this is going to be there forever. We're going to try and break the supermajority this year. And if we get a really big vote and we get everyone excited about our races and voter ID, look, it's a stretch, but that's what we're going for. And even if we don't get there, we get a step closer, which means we can do it in 2028. So that's how we're seeing this as a long-term effort to bring our state back to sanity. In terms of, let's just assume for your question that it is a 2/3 majority as we have now. The first point is that when I'm elected and I take office, it's a very clear plan we've run. No one can be any doubt what I'm running on. And I have a mandate for it, much bigger than theirs, by the way. No one knows who those people are, frankly. Let's be honest. And so I will say to the legislature, excuse me, especially after all your lectures for all these years about our democracy and not overturning elections, I hope you're not going to stand there and say that you're going to overturn the result of the governor's race, where the people voted for change. You better work with me to deliver that change. That's my attitude that I'll have. Look, I'm not holding my breath, but actually, to be fair, there are some points of agreement. You saw it in the governor's race. Katie Porter actually adopted my tax plan because she agreed with it. She really did. And so I think there are some areas where we may be able to work together. But then, there's a couple of points I'd make. First of all, one of the problems in this state is that we have this insane proliferation of legislation because of the, like I said at the beginning, no checks and balances. So they're just churning out bills. Last year, the state legislature passed 1,118 bills. Like, no one's even reading this. I know I'm not very tall. We printed it out. It was twice my height. Like, no one's reading it. And so one very important power of the governor is the power of veto. And I'm telling you right now, I've made a pledge, and I'll make it to all of you here. I will veto any legislation that doesn't proactively make life easier, more affordable, and safer for California families and businesses. And I'm really looking forward to it. They have no idea what's about to hit them. They have no idea how aggressive I'm going to be at reining in this bloated nanny state bureaucracy and the legislation that enables it. And you'd be, smart people turn around and say, well, Steve, if they have a 2/3 majority, they can overturn a veto. That's correct. Do you know the last time that the legislature did a veto override? 1979. They don't like doing it. And okay, I'll give them a lot of chance because of all the bills I'm going to be vetoing, but it takes time. And the real point is this: that will require them to justify these insane bills. And that's what's not been happening. All these things like you're talking about with families and kids, they slip it through. Every now and again, there's a bill like you shine a spotlight on it with campaigners like you, but for every one that someone manages to get some attention on, there are hundreds that just slip through and no one scrutinizes, no one reads them, and then they end up making our lives more expensive and more of a hassle. And so if I veto it, then they have to justify it in the full glare of publicity. And most of this stuff is literally indefensible. So it's a very important power, the power of veto, and I'm very excited about using it to its full.
Let me just add to this. What Steve said is actually absolutely true. Nobody is clamoring for more bills. But remember, There's only one bill that is required in California for the legislature to send to the governor, and it's a budget. The governor of California has strong powers and a red pencil. That means this is a very powerful model for governor. Day one as well, the governor can call a special session, an extraordinary session of the legislature. Like, we don't want a single bill on the desk. Don't even think about it. Basically, the governor sets the tone, whatever he wishes to do, the budget, the deficit, waste, again, to abuse. He calls it, he puts it out there. The legislature comes, then you go the tit for the tat, you start the negotiation, the process. The governor controls all that. And in the meantime, he has sent a message. I don't want your stinking badges. I don't want your bills. Don't even think about it, because everything can be done through the budget. And that's the power of a governor and an extraordinary session in California. You don't need the 2/3 majority. They could go back and they could say, we're going to veto, we refuse to come in. You deal with it. I don't think they will do it at that point, but you have to look at all the other powers that a governor has.
All right. So we're going to have to wrap it up there. We're going to do a picture in a minute. I just want to say one last thing, which is I just want you to know that when you put me there as your governor, leading this incredible team, you're going to have someone in there who loves this state so much, who is not going to let California slip further into decline, and will bring energy and positivity and pragmatism to this job. We have been ruled for too long by ideologues and bureaucrats who've lost touch with the people. I will never forget where I came from. My family left communist Hungary. I was born in a free country, one where we worked hard and we climbed that ladder of opportunity in a working class immigrant home. It got me to Oxford University, working in 10 Downing Street, starting businesses of my own. I will bring that clear, direct, problem-solving business mindset to our government. It will be under new management, and the results will be spectacular. I'm telling you that right now. The last thing I'm going to say is, if you want to help, as well as getting all your friends to vote and all the rest of it, there's some fantastic gear at the back there that you can buy, T-shirts and caps, and also this pin, which I know a lot of you will say, I love your pin, Steve, my Stars and Stripes California pin. You can get your own right back there. There's David at the back there holding it up. You can get it for $41 because it will help make me the 41st governor of the great state of California. Thank you very much, everybody.